Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, watching the stars drift past the main screen. Her ship looked like any other research vessel in the galaxy with its white hull and peaceful blue markings. The crew worked quietly, around her checking their instruments and running scans of the nearby planets. Everything seemed normal in this quiet corner of space near the Vega 7 system. Dr. Zara Cathara sat at her science station with her blue skin glowing softly under the bridge lights. Her large black eyes focused on the data flowing across her screen as she studied the ancient ruins they had found on the third planet. The Zenthari woman had joined this mission because she loved learning about old civilizations. Her people were known for being very smart and having special mental powers that let them talk to each other without words. Commander Arya Moonwhisper checked the tactical display from her position near the captain. The elf had lived for over 300 years and had seen many battles, but she preferred this peaceful work. Her pointed ears picked up every sound on the bridge, and her green eyes missed nothing. She wore her silver hair in a long braid that reached down to her waist. Like all elves, she was tall and graceful, with an otherworldly beauty that made humans stare. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez worked at the weapons station, even though they rarely needed weapons on research missions. The young human woman from Texas kept all their defensive systems ready just in case. She had joined the space service because she wanted to see the galaxy and protect people. Amy was short and strong, with dark hair and brown eyes that always seemed to be smiling. Ensign Bella Starweaver was the youngest member of the crew at only 50 years old, which was very young for an elf. She worked in engineering and loved fixing things and making them work better. Bella had blonde hair and blue eyes, which was unusual for elves. She was excited to be on her first deep space mission and wanted to prove herself to the older crew members. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft humming of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of the computers. Captain Martinez had been in space for 15 years, and she enjoyed these peaceful moments. The Aurora's edge was supposed to be studying old alien ruins and looking for new planets that could support life. It was important work, but not very dangerous. Dr. Cathara suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her telepathic abilities were picking up something strange. She could sense minds approaching from the edge of the solar system, but they felt different. From any species she knew, these thoughts were full of anger and greed and violence. She turned to look at Captain Martinez with worry in her large, dark eyes. Before Dr. Cathara could speak, the ship's alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed across the bridge as Lieutenant Rodriguez shouted that her sensors were picking up multiple ships approaching fast. The main screen changed to show 6 large warships coming toward them with their weapons already charged and ready to fire. Captain Martinez ordered everyone to battle stations, but she knew they were in trouble. The Aurora's edge was built for research, not fighting. These ships looked like they belonged to the hegemony, which was bad news for everyone. The hegemony was an empire that conquered other species and made them into slaves. They believed that only the strongest had the right to rule the galaxy. The lead hegemony ship sent a message to the Aurora's edge. The face that appeared on the screen was ugly and cruel, with gray skin and yellow eyes. Warlord Grixtal smiled, showing his sharp teeth as he spoke. His voice was rough and mean as he told Captain Martinez that her ship now belonged to him. He said that humans were weak and that elves were nothing but pretty decorations. He laughed when he saw Dr. Cathara and said that Zenthari made good slaves because they were so smart. Commander Arya felt her anger rising as the warlord insulted her people. Her hand moved toward the ancient sword she wore at her side. Even in space-age elves still carried their traditional weapons because they could channel their magical powers through them. She had fought in wars before the peace treaty was signed, and she remembered how deadly elves could be when they were angry. Amy Rodriguez wanted to fight back, but their weapons were no match for 6 hegemony battleships. Each enemy ship was 3 times the size of the Aurora's edge, and had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. She looked at her captain, waiting for orders, but knowing there was not much they could do. The hegemony ships opened fire without warning. Energy beams hit the Aurora's edge and shook the entire ship. The lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Dr. Cathara was thrown from her chair as another blast hit them. She could feel the fear and pain of her crewmates through her telepathic connection with them. Captain Martinez ordered evasive maneuvers, but the enemy ships were too fast and too many. Another volley of energy blasts disabled their main engines, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. The warlord's laughter echoed through the bridge as he prepared to board their ship. He told his warriors to capture the crew alive because healthy slaves were worth more money. Bella Starweaver worked frantically at her engineering station trying to get the engines back online. Her young fingers flew over the controls as she rerouted power and bypassed damaged systems. She had studied the ship's design for months and knew every circuit and wire, but the damage was too severe and she could not get them moving again. The hegemony boarding ships attached themselves to the Aurora's edge like giant metal parasites. The crew could hear the sound of cutting tools as the enemy soldiers burned through their hull. Soon, armed warriors would be inside their ship, and then it would all be over. Or so the warlord thought. He had no idea what kind of ship he had just attacked or what kind of crew was waiting for him inside. The sound of metal being cut echoed through the corridors of the Aurora's edge as hegemony warriors burned their way inside. Captain Martinez watched her crew with calm eyes that held no fear. She had been waiting for this moment for months. The enemy soldiers had no idea they were walking into a carefully planned trap. Chief Petty Officer Nina Walsh crouched behind a corner with her squad of Marines. The tough woman from Chicago had fought in 3 wars before joining this special mission. Her short red hair was hidden under her combat helmet, and her green eyes focused on the approaching footsteps. Nina had handpicked each member of her team for this operation. They were the best fighters the human military had to offer. The Marines were not alone in their hiding spots. Lyra Dawnblade waited in the shadows near the main corridor with her, elven longbow ready. The warrior mage had silver hair that seemed to glow in the dim light, and violet eyes that could see in complete darkness. She was Commander Arya's combat partner and had trained for over 200 years in the ancient arts of elven warfare. Her arrows were not ordinary weapons, but were blessed with magical power that could pierce any armor. Vera X-Nye worked at a hidden control panel deeper in the ship. The Zenthari engineer had cybernetic implants that let her connect directly to the ship's computer systems. Her blue skin was covered with thin silver lines that were actually tiny machines living under her flesh. These implants made her faster and smarter than any normal person. She could control multiple ship systems at the same time just by thinking about them. Dr. Cathara sat in the secure medical bay with her eyes closed and her mind reaching out through the ship. Her telepathic powers let her see through the eyes of every crew member and coordinate their actions without using radios that the enemy might hear. She could feel the hegemony warriors moving through the ship like angry insects invading a nest. They thought they were hunters, but they were actually the prey. The first group of enemy soldiers broke through the hull and stepped inside the Aurora's edge. They were large reptilian creatures with thick green scales and powerful claws. Each warrior carried an energy rifle and wore heavy battle armor. Their leader barked orders in their harsh language as they spread out to search the ship. They moved confidently, because they had done this many times before. Captain Martinez spoke quietly into her communicator, giving the code word that would change everything. The Aurora's Edge was not really a research vessel at all. It was a prototype warship disguised to look harmless. The Alliance had built it as part of a secret program to fight back against hegemony raids. The ship was a wolf in sheep's clothing, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal its true nature. Hidden panels slid open throughout the ship, revealing weapons and defensive systems that had been completely invisible moments before. The plain white walls were actually advanced armor plating that could stop battleship cannons. The innocent-looking research equipment transformed into targeting computers and weapon control systems. Even the furniture was fake and hid additional surprises for unwelcome guests. Vera X-Nye activated the ship's transformation sequence with her mind. Massive mechanical systems moved inside the walls as the Aurora's Edge changed from peaceful explorer to deadly predator. New weapon turrets emerged from concealed positions. Shield generators powered up with a low humming sound. The ship's true identity was finally revealed after months of pretending to be something else. The hegemony warriors suddenly found themselves trapped inside a ship that was nothing like what they expected. Blast doors slammed shut, cutting off their escape routes. Emergency lighting turned red, giving everything an evil glow. Automated defense systems came online and began tracking the intruders with invisible laser beams. The hunters had become the hunted in less than a minute. Nina Walsh gave the signal, and her Marines attacked from multiple directions at once. Human soldiers were known throughout the galaxy for their aggression and refusal to give up. They fought with a fury that surprised most alien species who thought humans were weak because they came from a peaceful-looking planet. The Marines used advanced weapons and tactics that no other species had developed. Lyra Dawnblade stepped out of the shadows and drew her bowstring back. Ancient elven magic flowed through her weapon as she aimed at the enemy leader. Her arrow blazed with blue fire as it flew through the air and struck the warrior in the chest. The magical energy burned through his armor like it was made of paper. Other elves throughout the ship began using their own magical abilities to fight the invaders. The hegemony soldiers tried to fight back, but they were completely confused by what was happening. Their weapons could not damage the ship's hidden armor. Their communications were being blocked by systems they could not see. Worst of all, their enemies seemed to know exactly where they were at all times thanks to Dr. Cathara's telepathic coordination. Commander Arya joined the battle with her ancient elven sword in her hand. The blade had been forged centuries ago and was covered with runes that glowed when she channeled her power through it. She moved like a dancer as she fought, cutting down enemies with graceful strikes that were too fast for them to follow. Her 300 years of experience made her deadlier than any normal soldier. Amy Rodriguez activated the ship's hidden weapon systems from her station on the bridge. She had been pretending to be helpless, but now she showed why human weapon design was feared across the galaxy. Energy cannons emerged from concealed positions and began firing at the hegemony ships outside. Each blast was perfectly aimed thanks to the combination of human technology and elven magical targeting. The enemy warriors found themselves fighting an opponent unlike anything they had faced before. Humans provided unpredictable tactics and stubborn determination. Elves brought centuries of combat experience and supernatural abilities. The Zenthari offered advanced technology and perfect coordination. Together, they were far more dangerous than any single species could be alone. Bella, Starweaver, worked frantically in engineering to restore the ship's mobility. Her young mind was brilliant with mechanical systems, and she had made several improvements to the original design. The engines roared back to life as she bypassed the damaged systems and rerouted power through backup circuits. The Aurora's Edge was ready to take the fight to the enemy fleet. Dr. Cathara reached out with her mind to touch the thoughts of the hegemony warriors. She filled their heads with fear and confusion, making them unable to think clearly. Her telepathic powers were like a weapon that could strike without being seen. The enemy soldiers stumbled around like they were drunk while the crew picked them off one by one. Within minutes, the boarding party was completely wiped out. The hegemony had expected to capture a helpless research crew, but instead they had lost an entire squad of their best warriors. Warlord Grixtal watched in shock from his command ship as his soldiers disappeared from his sensors one by one. He was beginning to realize that he had made a terrible mistake. The Aurora's Edge broke free from the boarding ships with a burst of engine power that surprised the hegemony fleet. Captain Martinez stood on her bridge watching the enemy vessels scramble to react to their sudden change of situation. The hunters had become the hunted, and now it was time to show them what a real predator could do. Her crew was ready for the next phase of their mission. Major Kelly Thompson materialized on the bridge in a flash of silver light. The Human Special Forces commander had been hiding in a secret compartment waiting for this moment. She was tall and athletic, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail and cold blue eyes that had seen too many battles. Kelly carried weapons that most people had never heard of and knew fighting techniques from a dozen different worlds. Seraphina Nightwind appeared beside her in the same magical flash. The ancient elven battlemaster was over 800 years old and had fought in wars that were now just legends. Her long white hair flowed like liquid silver, and her golden eyes held the wisdom of centuries. She carried a staff topped with a crystal that pulsed with inner light. Seraphina knew magical arts that younger elves thought were just stories. Dr. Maya Singh hurried onto the bridge from the medical bay. She was half human and half Zenthari, which made her unique in the galaxy. Her mixed heritage gave her the best qualities of both species. Maya had her mother's human determination and her father's Zenthari mental abilities. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes changed color depending on her mood. She could interface with both biological and technological systems in ways that amazed her colleagues. The hegemony fleet tried to surround the Aurora's edge, but Captain Martinez was ready for their tactics. She had studied their battle patterns for months and knew exactly how they would react. The enemy ships moved like a pack of predators trying to corner wounded prey, but they had no idea what they were really facing. Their overconfidence would be their downfall. Amy Rodriguez targeted the nearest hegemony cruiser with the ship's main weapons. The energy cannons that emerged from hidden compartments were more powerful than anything the enemy had seen before. Her first shot punched through their shields like they were made of tissue paper. The blast tore a hole in their hull big enough to fly a shuttle through. Explosions rippled across the enemy ship as their own weapons exploded from the inside. Commander, Arya began channeling her magical power through the ship's targeting system. Elven magic could enhance technology in ways that most scientists did not understand. Her mystical energy flowed through the computer networks, making the weapons more accurate and the shields stronger. The Aurora's edge began to glow with a faint silver light as ancient power mixed with modern engineering. Dr. Cathara linked her mind to every crew member, creating a telepathic network that let them coordinate perfectly. Nina Walsh and her Marines could share tactical information instantly. Lyra Dawnblade could see through walls by borrowing the vision of her teammates. Vera X9 could control multiple ship systems simultaneously by using the mental power of the entire crew. They fought as one organism with many bodies. Seraphina raised her crystal staff and began speaking words in the ancient elven language. Magic that had not been used for 1,000 years flowed from her hands and spread throughout the ship. The Aurora's edge began moving faster than its engines should have allowed. Energy beams that should have hit them curved away harmlessly. Time itself seemed to slow down around them, giving the crew supernatural reflexes. The hegemony ships opened fire with everything they had, but their attacks could not penetrate the combination of advanced shields and elven protective magic. Warlord Grixtal screamed orders at his captains, demanding to know how a single research vessel was fighting off his entire fleet. His warriors had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this before. Major Thompson activated her personal teleportation device and vanished from the bridge. Seconds later, she appeared inside the hegemony command ship with her weapons already firing. The Special Forces soldier moved through the enemy corridors like a ghost, eliminating guards and sabotaging critical systems. Her training had prepared her for exactly this kind of impossible mission. Bella Starweaver worked her own kind of magic in the engineering section. The young elf had a natural talent for understanding mechanical systems that amazed even the experienced engineers. She boosted the engine output beyond normal safety limits and rerouted power in ways that the original designers never intended. The ship responded to her touch like a living creature eager to please its master. Dr. Singh used her hybrid abilities to hack into the hegemony communication network. Her Zenthari telepathy let her understand their alien thought patterns, while her human intuition helped her find weaknesses in their security. Within minutes, she had access to their tactical data and was feeding information to Amy Rodriguez about where to aim their next shots. Lyra Dawnblade fired arrow after arrow from her position on the observation deck. Each shaft was guided by elven magic and could change direction in flight to hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. Her arrows found weak spots in enemy armor and critical systems that conventional weapons would have missed. Every shot she fired disabled another enemy weapon or sensor array. The hegemony fleet began to fall apart under the coordinated assault. Two of their ships collided when their navigation systems were sabotaged by Major Thompson. Another cruiser exploded when Lyra's arrows hit their reactor core. The flagship lost its shields when Dr. Singh turned their own defensive systems against them. What had started as an easy raid was turning into a massacre. Vera X9 extended her cybernetic consciousness into the enemy ships through their own communication beams. Her technological implants let her fight a kind of warfare that purely biological beings could not understand. She turned their weapons against each other and locked their escape pods to prevent the crews from abandoning ship. The Zenthari engineer was waging war in cyberspace while her body remained safely aboard the Aurora's edge. Seraphina's ancient magic reached its peak as she called upon powers that few elves still remembered. Phantom warriors made of pure energy appeared around the hegemony ships and began tearing them apart with spectral weapons. The ghostly figures moved through solid matter as they attacked critical systems from the inside. Even the most hardened hegemony veterans had never seen anything so terrifying. Captain Martinez coordinated the entire battle with the calm precision of an experienced commander. She had trained for this moment her entire career, and every member of her crew was performing beyond their normal limits. The Aurora's edge danced between enemy fire like a leaf in the wind, while dealing devastating damage with surgical precision. This was what happened when different species worked together instead of fighting each other. The combination of human tactical thinking, elven magical power, and Zenthari technological superiority was proving unstoppable. Each species brought unique advantages that became even more powerful when combined with the others. The hegemony had built their empire by conquering isolated worlds one at a time, but they had never faced united opposition like this before. Warlord Grixtel realized that his fleet was being destroyed by creatures he had thought were inferior. His pride would not let him admit defeat, but his survival instincts were telling him to run before it was too late. The Aurora's edge had revealed itself to be far more than a simple research vessel. It was a weapon designed specifically to fight enemies like him, and it was winning. Warlord Grixtal watched in horror as another of his battleships exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The Aurora's edge moved through his fleet like a predator among helpless prey, striking with deadly precision and vanishing before his remaining ships could respond. Half of his vessels were already destroyed or disabled, and the rest were trying desperately to escape. This was supposed to have been an easy raid against a defenseless research ship. The warlord tried to contact his commanders in other star systems to call for reinforcements, but found that his long-range communications had been completely severed. Dr. Singh had used her hybrid abilities to slice through their quantum encryption like it was made of paper. Every message he sent was intercepted, and his calls for help never left the solar system. The Aurora's edge had trapped his entire fleet, with no way to call for backup. Major Thompson appeared on the bridge of another hegemony cruiser with her squad of invisible Marines. The human special forces team had been using elven teleportation magic to board enemy ships without being detected. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, eliminating key personnel and sabotaging critical systems. The hegemony crews could not fight enemies they could not see. Nina Walsh led her Marines in coordinating attacks on multiple ships at once. Her soldiers used human tactics that confused and terrified the enemy warriors who were used to straightforward battles. The Marines would appear in one location, draw the defenders away, then strike somewhere else entirely. They used the ship's own corridors against the defenders, turning every corner into a potential ambush point. Lyra Dawnblade and Commander Arya worked together to perform a magical assault that had not been attempted in over a century. The two elven warriors stood back to back on the observation deck with their weapons glowing like stars. Ancient power flowed between them as they combined their abilities into something far greater than either could achieve alone. The very air around them began to shimmer with mystical energy. The twin elves raised their weapons and channeled every bit of their magical power toward the largest hegemony battleship. A beam of pure silver light erupted from their position and struck the enemy vessel with the force of a miniature sun. The massive ship's shields collapsed instantly, and its armor began to melt like ice in a furnace. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as the magical energy overloaded every system on board. Dr. Singh made her way to the captured hegemony equipment that Major Thompson had secured from their raids. Her unique heritage as a human Zenthari hybrid allowed her to interface with alien technology in ways that amazed even her colleagues. She could understand both the logical programming and the emotional intentions behind enemy systems. Her mind bridged the gap between organic thought and artificial intelligence. The hybrid doctor placed her hands on the hegemony battle computer and felt its alien consciousness flow through her mind. The machine was programmed with centuries of tactical, data and strategic information about their empire's military capabilities. Maya began downloading everything she could find while simultaneously planting viruses that would spread to other hegemony systems when they tried to analyze the wreckage. Seraphina Nightwind reached even deeper into the ancient magical traditions of her people. The 800-year-old battlemaster began weaving spells that younger elves thought were just myths and legends. Reality itself seemed to bend around her as she called upon powers that had been forgotten when the galaxy was young. The crystal. Atop her staff blazed with light that hurt to look at directly. Phantom ships made of pure magical energy materialized around the hegemony fleet and began attacking with spectral weapons. The ghostly vessels could not be damaged by conventional weapons, but their attacks were all too real. Energy beams that should not have existed tore through enemy armor, while ethereal boarding parties phased through hull plating to attack from within. The hegemony warriors found themselves fighting enemies that followed no natural laws. Vera X9 expanded her cybernetic consciousness across the entire battlefield, using the communication networks of both fleets. Her technological implants let her see every ship and weapon as part of a vast electronic organism that she could control with her thoughts. The Zenthari engineer began turning the hegemony fleet's own systems against them in ways their designers never imagined possible. Enemy ships found their navigation computers pointing them toward each other on collision courses. Weapon systems locked onto their own allies instead of the Aurora's edge. Life support systems began failing throughout the fleet as Vera systematically sabotaged every critical function she could reach. The hegemony crews were being defeated by their own technology. Bella Starweaver pushed the Aurora's edge beyond all reasonable limits as she channeled her natural mechanical empathy through the ship's systems. The young elf could feel every circuit and component as if they were part of her own body. She boosted power output, redirected energy flows, and enhanced performance in ways that should have been impossible. The ship responded to her touch like a living creature eager to exceed its original design. Captain Martinez coordinated the entire battle from her position on the bridge using tactical displays that showed information from every member of her crew. The telepathic link created by Dr. Cathera allowed her to make decisions with perfect knowledge of the battlefield situation. She could see through the eyes of her Marines, feel the magical energy flowing through her elven crew members, and understand the technological warfare being waged by her Zenthari allies. The remaining hegemony ships tried to form a defensive formation, but found that their coordination had been completely disrupted. Dr. Singh's computer viruses were spreading through their networks, causing systems to malfunction at critical moments. Major Thompson's sabotage teams had destroyed key command personnel on multiple vessels. The fleet that had arrived confident of easy victory was now a collection of crippled ships fighting for survival. Amy Rodriguez targeted the hegemony flagship with the Aurora's Edge's most powerful weapons. The energy cannons had been enhanced by elven magic and boosted by Zenthari technology until they were capable of punching through any known armor. Her targeting system was guided by Commander Arya's mystical senses and coordinated through Dr. Cathara's telepathic network. Every shot was perfectly placed for maximum damage. The flagship's shields collapsed under the coordinated assault, and its hull began to buckle under the strain. Warlord Grixtal realized that his mighty fleet had been defeated by a single ship crewed by species he had considered inferior. His empire was built on the belief that strength was the only thing that mattered, but these enemies had shown him that cooperation could be stronger than conquest. Captain Martinez opened a communication channel to broadcast on all hegemony frequencies. Her voice was calm and professional as she delivered a message that would be remembered throughout their empire. She told them that this was what happened when they attacked peaceful explorers, and that the alliance between humans, elves, and progressive alien species would no longer tolerate their raids on innocent worlds. The Aurora's Edge hung in space surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been a proud hegemony fleet. Only 2 enemy ships remained intact, and they were sending surrender signals as fast as their damaged communication systems would allow. The crew had achieved something that military strategists thought was impossible. They had defeated a force 6 times their size without losing a single person. But Captain Martinez knew that their real victory was not the destruction of enemy ships. It was the message they had sent across the galaxy that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that the days of easy raids against helpless targets were coming to an end. The hegemony had learned too late that they had messed with the wrong ship. The last hegemony battleship powered down its weapons and sent a surrender signal to the Aurora's Edge. Captain Martinez looked at the debris field that had once been a proud enemy fleet and felt no joy in the destruction. War was never something to celebrate even when fighting against those who enslaved innocent people. Her crew had done what was necessary, but she took no pleasure in the death and suffering they had caused. Warlord Grixtal appeared on the main screen with his ugly face, twisted in defeat and rage. The proud leader who had thought he was hunting easy prey now found himself begging for mercy from those he had planned to enslave. His yellow eyes darted around as he searched for some way to salvage his reputation from this disaster. The other hegemony leaders would not forgive such a complete failure. Dr. Cathara reached out with her telepathic abilities to scan the minds of the surviving hegemony crews. What she found made her gasp in shock and horror. Hidden in the lower levels of their ships were thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species. Men, women, and children who had been captured during other raids were being transported to slave markets in hegemony space. These people had been suffering in cramped cages while their captors planned to sell them like animals. The Zenthari doctor immediately shared this information with Captain Martinez through their mental link. The human commander felt her anger rise as she realized that this battle was about more than just stopping one raiding fleet. They had stumbled upon a major slave trafficking operation that had been going on for years. Innocent people were dying in those cargo holds while they spoke. Major Thompson and her Special Forces team immediately began boarding the captured ships to search for the prisoners. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. Beings from species that the Alliance thought were extinct were chained in the darkest corners of the ships. Children who had been separated from their parents months ago huddled together for comfort. Adults who had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again looked at their rescuers with disbelief. Nina Walsh led her Marines in freeing the prisoners and providing medical care to those who needed it. The tough woman from Chicago had seen many horrible things during her military career, but the condition of these slaves made her want to cry. Some had been tortured for refusing to work. Others had been starved until they were barely alive. All of them bore the physical and mental scars of months or years in captivity. Dr. Singh worked frantically to treat the most seriously injured prisoners using her knowledge of multiple species biology. Her hybrid nature allowed her to understand the medical needs of beings that pure human or Zenthari doctors might not be able to help. She moved from patient to patient, providing care and comfort while fighting back tears at the suffering she witnessed. Seraphina Nightwind used her ancient magic to heal wounds that conventional medicine could not touch. The 800-year-old elf had powers that could mend broken spirits as well as damaged bodies. She walked among the freed slaves, speaking words of comfort in languages that had not been heard for generations. Her presence brought peace, too, those who had forgotten what safety felt like. Lyra Dawnblade and Commander Arya performed a ritual that honored both the dead enemies and the suffering victims. Elven tradition required that even defeated foes be treated with respect in death. The two warriors stood in the observation deck and sang ancient songs that carried the spirits of the fallen to whatever afterlife awaited them. It was important to remember that every life had value even when they had chosen to serve evil. Bella Starweaver worked to repair the life support systems on the slave ships so that the rescued prisoners would be comfortable during their journey to freedom. The young elf's mechanical abilities were put to good use, fixing damaged air recyclers and water purifiers. She wanted to make sure that people who had suffered so much would not have to endure any more hardship. Vera X. Nye used her cybernetic implants to download the complete records from the hegemony computer systems. The information she gathered would help the Alliance track down other slave trading operations and rescue more prisoners. She also planted special programs that would send false reports to Hegemony Command, making them think this fleet had simply vanished without a trace. Captain Martinez recorded a message that would be broadcast throughout Hegemony space using their own communication networks. She looked directly into the camera as she spoke, and her voice carried the authority of someone who had just proved their words with action. The message was simple but powerful, and it would be remembered by every hegemony leader who heard it. She told them that the alliance of humans, elves, and progressive alien species would no longer tolerate raids against innocent worlds. Any hegemony forces found engaging in slave trading or unprovoked attacks would face the same fate as this fleet. The days of easy conquests were over, and they would have to find a new way to build their empire if they wanted to survive. Amy Rodriguez worked with Dr. Singh to analyze the captured hegemony technology and look for ways to improve their own defensive systems. The weapons and shields they had recovered would help protect other Alliance ships from future attacks. Knowledge gained from studying enemy equipment would save lives in battles yet to come. The Aurora's Edge began the long journey back to Alliance space with their rescued passengers and valuable intelligence. The ship's cargo bays had been converted into temporary living quarters for the freed slaves who would need time to recover from their ordeal. Medical teams worked around the clock to provide care and counseling to people who had endured unimaginable suffering. Dr. Cathara spent hours talking to the rescued prisoners, using her telepathic abilities to help heal their psychological wounds. Many of them had developed mental barriers to protect themselves from the pain of captivity. She gently helped them remember who they had been before their capture and gave them hope for the future. The crew of the Aurora's Edge had achieved something remarkable by working together despite their different backgrounds and abilities. Humans had provided tactical innovation and stubborn determination. Elves had contributed centuries of wisdom and powerful magic. The Zenthari had offered advanced technology and perfect coordination. Together, they had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Captain Martinez stood on her bridge watching the stars ahead as they traveled toward home. She knew that this battle was just the beginning of a larger war between those who believed in freedom and those who sought to enslave others. But she also knew that her crew had sent a message that would be heard across the galaxy. The hegemony had learned too late that they had messed with the wrong ship. The Aurora's Edge and her crew had shown them that the age of easy conquests was over. From now on, anyone who threatened innocent people would face the combined might of species who had learned to work together for the common good. The message had been sent, and the galaxy would never be the same. Word of their victory spread quickly through both Alliance and Hegemony space. Other slave trading fleets began to disappear as Hegemony commanders decided that the risk was no longer worth the profit. Peaceful species that had lived in fear of raids began to hope that they might finally be safe. The Aurora's Edge had started something that would change the balance of power throughout the known galaxy. The crew had proved that when different species worked together, they could accomplish things that none of them could achieve alone. It was a lesson that would inspire others to join the Alliance and stand up against those who sought to dominate through fear and violence. The consequences of messing with the wrong ship would echo through history for generations to come.